can put forward in terms of this, and then we'll take it from there.
I call Todd McLeay.
Mr Speaker, thank you. The government will be voting against this legislation because we believe it would be irresponsible to allow it to pass into law. We're already practising responsible investment criteria that the bill seeks to formalise, and therefore this would mean more red tape and more bureaucracy, and that would be irresponsible for New Zealanders. You see, Mr Speaker, we don't support creating red tape and bureaucracy around investment or any other area that it's unnecessary in New Zealand, and actually this government has a very good record over the last 4 years of working through bureaucracy so that New Zealanders and New Zealand businesses could get on doing the job that they need to, rather than having unnecessary government intervention and interference. We also have a responsible investment work as an integrated into our investment activities, and I believe very clearly, Mr Speaker, that responsible asset owners will exercise best practice when it comes to portfolio management across a number of sectors and areas of interest: environment, social, governance issues and so on. See, Mr Speaker, the purpose of the New Zealand Super Fund is to meet the future requirements of New Zealanders when they require, and this bill will do nothing but tinker with that objective. What it means at the moment is no government interference, and I understand that this is a foreign concept to many members opposite. Indeed, Russell Norman, as the current opposition finance spokesman, he wants to get his hands on every single part of the pie that he can. We've already heard from Mr Norman that he intends, when he becomes Minister of Finance in a Green Labour coalition, to print billions of dollars, magic them out of thin air to solve some of the challenges that we have in New Zealand at the moment around meeting debts and balancing the economy. Well, indeed, the Governor of the Reserve Bank came before the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee not so many weeks ago, where he said...
Point of order. Point of order, Dr. Russell.
This has absolutely nothing to do with the bill, Mr Speaker.
No, well, it has been a pretty wide debate, I'd have to say, so I know the member will come back to the point.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I'm going to continue because it absolutely has everything to do with this bill, the credibility of the member that's brought it forward, and the devastating effect that legislation like this and other things that member has been spouting up and down the country will have upon New Zealand and the New Zealand economy. So I continue. He said that he wants to print billions of dollars to solve some of our problems, magic them out of thin air. Quantitative easing, of course. The Governor of the Reserve Bank came before the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee and said that this was a desperate policy, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. We've heard from Mr Norman, in line with what this bill would seek to do in New Zealand, that he wants to tax most productive businesses in New Zealand out of existence. And now he hates rural New Zealand, would love to see farmers give up and go elsewhere.
Point of order.
Point of order, Dr. Russell.
I take offence at the comments by that member that I hate rural New Zealand. It's completely untrue, and I take offence at it.
No, look, these are debating points. Todd McLeay.
Good, thank you, Mr Speaker. Most of the policies that party and Mr Norman portray to New Zealanders would lead a reasonable person to believe that he hates rural New Zealand and wants to see farmers the most productive of...
Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
The member's opinions that someone might hate rural New Zealand has nothing to do with this bill, and I would ask that you keep him on the topic.
I'm the judge of that, and this has been a pretty wide debate. It's been a fair debate, pretty equitable. I am on my feet, and don't interrupt when I'm on my feet. And I'm asking the member has 1 minute to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. So what this member wants, who's brought the bill before the House, is to see the most productive part of New Zealand, our farmers and our dairy farmers, on welfare. Well, that's not good enough for the government. Now, finally, with this bill, Mr Speaker, he wants to get his hands on the New Zealand Super Fund and put the future of all New Zealanders at risk, and that's irresponsible, and this is a very bad piece of legislation. Now, when it comes actually to the detail of what he thinks needs to happen in this area, and indeed what the Super Fund is already doing, they've signed up to a wide number of codes of conduct and international bodies that put integrity, including environmental integrity, at the heart of the way they make decisions about their investments. And the very most important part of this is it's up to them to decide what it is they do with New Zealand funds, and members opposite in coalition with the Green Party, where those Green Party members will take on extremely important important roles in government and finance should keep their hands off these funds. Mr Speaker, very happy to say we'll be voting against this legislation because it would do great harm to the New Zealand Fupa Fund and to New Zealand businesses.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. His time has expired. Order. I call order. I'm calling the Honourable Shane.